There's a silent mistake that millions of people make every single day. They believe that the more available they are, the more appreciated they will become. So they answer every message immediately. They rearrange their schedule for everyone else. They never say no. They always make time. They always show up. They always put themselves last. At first, it feels generous. It feels kind. It even feels noble. But slowly, something unexpected begins to happen. Instead of becoming more respected, they become expected. People stop appreciating what is always available. Not because they are cruel, because the human mind adapts. Imagine walking past a beautiful waterfall every morning on your way to work. The first day, you stop to admire it. The second day, you take a picture. A week later, you barely notice it's there. The waterfall never became less beautiful. Your mind simply became accustomed to it. Psychologists call this habituation. The more constant something becomes, the less attention it naturally receives. This principle affects far more than scenery. It affects conversations, relationships, friendships, and the way people perceive your value. The silent strategist understands something that most people never consider. Availability and generosity are not the same thing. One comes from choice. The other often comes from fear. Fear of disappointing people. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of losing approval. Fear of conflict. That fear quietly controls countless lives. Years ago, an old clockmaker was repairing a magnificent antique watch. A customer asked him why he handled every tiny gear with such extraordinary care. The clockmaker smiled, because if every gear turns for every wheel, the watch eventually stops telling time. At first, the customer didn't understand, but the lesson was profound. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a limit. A watch survives because each gear moves only when it is supposed to. People are no different. If you're emotionally available for everyone, every hour, every problem, every crisis, eventually, you stop having enough energy for your own life. And yet, many people continue living this way because they confuse self-sacrifice with love. They believe exhaustion is proof of loyalty. It isn't. Exhaustion is often proof that boundaries have disappeared. Imagine owning a luxury hotel. Every room is occupied. Every hallway is crowded. Guests keep arriving. No one ever checks out. At first, the hotel appears successful, but behind the scenes, the staff becomes overwhelmed. Maintenance stops. Nothing gets repaired. Eventually, the entire building begins falling apart. Your mind works exactly the same way. Every unnecessary obligation becomes another guest. Every attempt to please everyone occupies another room. Every fear of saying no fills another hallway. Until one day, there is no space left for you. No room for rest. No room for creativity. No room for discipline. No room for purpose. The tragedy is that this rarely happens overnight. It happens one small favor at a time. One unnecessary apology. One more commitment. One more interruption. One more moment where someone else's priorities quietly replace your own. The silent strategist notices these moments immediately because he understands that attention is the rarest currency a human being possesses. Money can be earned again. Time cannot. Attention shapes both. Where your attention goes, your future quietly follows. Now ask yourself something honestly. If someone watched your life for the last 30 days, would they conclude that your attention belongs to your purpose or to everyone else's expectations? That answer reveals far more than most people are willing to admit. Inside the Dark Mind Protocol, one of the first disciplines we develop is learning to protect attention with the same seriousness that successful people protect their finances. Because attention is capital, spend it carelessly, and your future becomes poor. Invest it wisely, and every area of your life begins to grow. If you're ready to stop living according to everyone else's priorities and start building a life directed by your own mission, you'll find a complete system waiting for you in the first pinned comment. The surprising part is this. When you stop making yourself available for everything, people don't always become angry. Many of them begin respecting you for the very first time. The first time you stop saying yes to everything, something unexpected happens. Nothing. The world doesn't collapse. The friendships that are genuine remain. Your family survives. Your career continues. And yet, inside your own mind, it can feel as though you've committed a terrible mistake. Why? Because many people have been conditioned to believe that protecting themselves is selfish. They learn from an early age that being good meant always being available, always helping, always understanding, always sacrificing. But there is a dangerous difference between kindness and self-abandonment. One builds relationships. The other slowly destroys the person offering it. Imagine an old oak tree standing alone in the middle of a field. Every traveler stops beneath its branches to escape the sun. Birds build nests in it. Children climb it. Its roots hold the earth together during storms. The tree gives constantly. But imagine if someone began cutting away one branch every single day. Just one more. It won't matter. You're strong enough. Eventually, even the strongest oak would become too weak to stand. The problem was never generosity. The problem was that no one remembered the tree also needed to remain whole. Many people live exactly like that tree. They give pieces of themselves so often, they forget to ask whether anything is left. The silent strategist understands a principle that changes everything. If your life has no protected space, eventually, someone else will occupy all of it. Not because people are evil, because people naturally expand into whatever access they are given. Think about water. Pour it onto a table, and it spreads until it reaches every edge. Human expectations behave in much the same way. If you answer messages at midnight, people begin expecting midnight replies. If you cancel your own plans whenever someone calls, people begin assuming your time is always available. If you never protect your schedule, others will start writing it for you. And the frightening part is this: most of them won't even realize they're doing it. They'll simply believe that's who you are, the one who's always there. At first, that sounds like a compliment, until you realize it often means the one who never protects himself. Years ago, a master swordsmith accepted only a handful of students during his entire lifetime. One young man traveled for weeks to study under him. When he finally arrived, the master refused. The young man begged for another chance. Again, the answer was no. Confused, one of the older students asked why. The master replied, "If I open my door to everyone, I will eventually have nothing left to teach anyone." That answer wasn't about arrogance. It was about preservation. The master understood something most people forget. Access creates value only when it has limits. A library that never closes protects knowledge. A museum protects priceless art. A bank protects its wealth. Yet many people leave the most valuable thing they own completely unprotected: their attention. The silent strategist treats attention like a vault. Not everyone receives unlimited access. Not every request deserves an immediate response. Not every interruption deserves priority. This doesn't make him cold. It makes him intentional. Imagine trying to read a book in a room where someone interrupts you every 3 minutes. By the end of the hour, you may have read several pages, but understood almost nothing. That is how many people live every day. Constant interruptions, constant notifications, constant requests, constant emotional demands. Then they wonder why they feel mentally exhausted. Focus was never meant to survive endless interruption. Neither was peace. One of the greatest myths of modern life is that being busy means being productive. It doesn't. Many people spend 12 exhausting hours reacting to everyone else's priorities, while making almost no progress toward their own. The silent strategist asks a different question each morning. What deserves my attention today? Not who is demanding it. That single shift changes the direction of an entire life. Because attention follows intention, and intention creates destiny. Before we continue, think about the last 7 days. How many times did you interrupt your own priorities because someone else's request felt more urgent? How many promises did you make to yourself, only to break them because someone else asked for your time? Now imagine doing the opposite for the next month. Imagine treating the promises you make to yourself with the same seriousness you treat the promises you make to everyone else. That simple habit has transformed more lives than most people realize. Inside the Dark Mind Protocol, we don't teach men to ignore people. We teach them to stop abandoning themselves. Because the man who cannot honor his own priorities will eventually expect the world to do it for him, and the world never will. The greatest shift, however, happens when other people begin noticing that your time is no longer something they can assume belongs to them. That is where respect quietly begins to grow. There comes a moment when people realize something has changed, not because you announced it, not because you posted a quote about boundaries, not because you gave a long explanation. They notice because your behavior becomes different. You don't answer every message within seconds. You don't abandon your plans to solve problems that aren't yours. You don't apologize for protecting your own time. And something fascinating begins to happen. The people who truly respect you adjust. The people who only benefited from your unlimited availability complain. That difference tells you everything you need to know. Imagine a store that is open 24 hours a day, every day of the year. Customers eventually expect it to be open. They stop appreciating the convenience. Now imagine that same store carefully chooses its hours. Suddenly, people plan ahead. They value the opportunity. They respect the schedule. Nothing about the products changed. Only access changed. Human psychology responds in remarkably similar ways. Unlimited access often creates unconscious entitlement. Healthy limits create appreciation. The silent strategist never confuses appreciation with attention. Many people receive attention. Very few receive genuine respect. Attention is easy. Respect is earned. Attention comes from being entertaining. Respect comes from being consistent. Attention can disappear overnight. Respect tends to grow over time. That is why powerful men build character instead of chasing popularity. Years ago, a successful architect was asked why he never accepted every project offered to him. He laughed and said, "If I accepted every opportunity, I'd lose the ability to recognize the right ones." That answer applies to much more than business. Every unnecessary commitment silently steals energy from a meaningful one. Every distraction competes with your purpose. Every impulsive yes makes your important yes less valuable. The silent strategist understands that every decision has an invisible cost. Most people only see what they gain. He also sees what he gives up. When you agree to spend 3 hours solving someone else's avoidable crisis, what are you sacrificing? Time in the gym? Time with your family? Time building your business? Time reading? Time resting? Time thinking? Every choice closes the door on another possibility. Wise men remember that. Imagine carrying a glass completely full of water. Someone asks you to pour in a little more. You can't. Not because you're selfish, because there is no room left. Your life works exactly the same way. If your schedule is already full, the healthiest answer is sometimes a simple no, without guilt, without excuses, without a 20-minute explanation. One of the quietest signs of confidence is the ability to say no without feeling responsible for someone else's disappointment. That takes practice, especially if you've spent years believing your value came from being useful. The truth is, being useful is admirable. Being available to everyone at the expense of yourself is not. There is a profound difference. The first builds strength. The second creates resentment. And resentment rarely appears all at once. It grows silently. You start feeling irritated by people you once enjoyed helping. Not because helping is wrong, but because you've been giving from an empty tank for far too long. The silent strategist never waits until resentment appears. He protects his energy long before exhaustion arrives. Because prevention is always less expensive than recovery. Think about professional athletes. They don't wait until every muscle is injured before resting. They recover before the damage becomes permanent. Emotionally intelligent men live the same way. They schedule silence. They protect solitude. They create boundaries. They defend their attention. Not because life is easy, because they know how quickly it can become overwhelming without those habits. Inside the Dark Mind Protocol, one of the first mindset shifts is realizing that your attention is an investment, not a donation. Every minute you spend should move your life forward or strengthen a relationship that genuinely deserves it. Everything else deserves careful evaluation. If you're ready to stop treating your time like it has no value and start protecting it like your greatest asset, you'll find a complete framework waiting for you in the first pinned comment. Because once people realize your attention is no longer unlimited, something remarkable happens. They stop expecting it, and they begin respecting it. In the end, this was never about making people chase you. It was never about creating mystery. It was never about pretending to be busy. Those are games, and games eventually fall apart. This has always been about something much deeper. Learning that your life has value even when no one is asking for your attention. That realization changes a man forever. Imagine a lighthouse standing on a rocky coastline. Every night it shines, not because ships applaud it, not because anyone thanks it, not because it needs recognition. It shines because that is its purpose. Whether one ship passes or 1,000, its mission never changes. The Silent Strategist lives the same way. His discipline does not depend on applause. His habits do not depend on motivation. His character does not depend on approval. He keeps becoming the man he decided to become, even when nobody is watching. That is real confidence. Most people misunderstand confidence completely. They think confidence is speaking loudly, being noticed, dominating every conversation, always having the perfect answer. But genuine confidence is much quieter. It is waking up early when no one would know if you slept in. It is keeping your word even when breaking it would be easier. It is saying no without feeling guilty. It is protecting your peace without apologizing for it. Years ago, a sculptor spent months carving an enormous block of marble. Visitors admired the finished statue and asked how he had created something so extraordinary. He smiled and answered, "I didn't build the masterpiece. I simply removed everything that didn't belong." That is exactly what this journey has been about. You are not trying to become someone new. You are removing everything that never belonged to you in the first place. The constant need for validation. The habit of saying yes out of fear. The guilt of protecting your own time. The belief that your value depends on how available you are. One by one, those unnecessary pieces begin to fall away. And underneath them, the man you are always capable of becoming begins to appear. There is one final lesson I hope you remember long after this video ends. People rarely respect what you endlessly give away. They respect what you protect. Protect your attention. Protect your time. Protect your standards. Protect your discipline. Protect your peace. Because every one of those things shapes the future version of you. Ask yourself this tonight. If your calendar reveals your priorities, what does yours say about your life? Does it reflect your mission? Or everyone else's expectations? That answer is more important than most people realize. The life you build tomorrow is already visible in the way you spend today. The Silent Strategist understands this. That is why he chooses his commitments carefully. He knows every unnecessary obligation steals energy from a meaningful one. He knows every careless distraction delays a worthwhile goal. Most importantly, he knows that every time he protects his attention, he strengthens his identity. And identity is the foundation of everything. Inside the Dark Mind Protocol, this is one of the core principles we practice every single day. Not becoming distant, not becoming cold, becoming intentional. A man who controls his attention eventually controls his habits. A man who controls his habits eventually controls his future. If you're ready to stop living on everyone else's schedule and start building a life that reflects your own purpose, you'll find a complete system waiting for you in the first pinned comment. Remember this: your availability is not your value. Your constant sacrifice is not your worth. Your inability to say no is not kindness. Real strength is knowing exactly where your attention belongs and having the courage to keep it there. Because when your attention becomes intentional, your life becomes intentional. And when your life becomes intentional, respect follows naturally. Not because you demanded it, not because you chased it, but because you finally became someone who no longer gives away the most valuable thing he owns: himself. That is the quiet power of the Silent Strategist. And that is how truly respected men are built.